Hello, and welcome to another episode of my Avorion Let's Play. Right. That changes control mode. There we go. It's been a tiny bit. The deals reset every time you log in and out, so quick look at the equipment.deals here, and then it's going to be time for some mining. The best way to get a little bit of money early on in the game is to mine resources and sell them. This is part why I made it to the Naonite sectors, because Naonite sells for more than titanium and iron, as well as letting me start developing my ship with better materials right away. So, yeah, these are kind of garbage. I could sell them, but they could find use, I suppose. Nah, I'm gonna sell them. Oop, not quite dot. There we go. Now I am. So yeah, the ATCS2 uses more energy per turret controlled than pretty much any other turret control system in the game. It's very inefficient. If I'm doing civilian turrets, I want a civil control system too. If at the very least, the uncommon rarity stuff uses less energy, though. Per slot, anyhow. For instance, this set to be permanently installed 400 megawatts for 2 unarmed. This could just be base installed 333 megawatts for 2. If I permanently install it, it gets even more cost effective because it also gets a defensive turret slot. I'm gonna grab a couple of those. This is at its core, a mining ship. Now, I forget, the definitions somewhat overlap, I believe. All defensive turrets are auto turrets, but not all turrets are defensive. There are offensive ones. I haven't really found much use or need for them. Early game, it's fine manually aiming. It's when you get really giant ships and it becomes difficult, you might use them. So, for now, that I should probably sell as well. Now the trading system doesn't consume any energy in a very basic one. Can be used to have a trade ship under a captain. I don't recall it mattering the quality of the trade system, although I could be wrong. Maybe the mission is more effective with better ones. Got some turrets on this. Should be able to equip 4 more military turret slots. I apologize if I'm not thinking the fastest. It's late. I'm tired. I'll eventually be able to equip up to 10 military turret slots with these gunners. Saying I need all 6 of them, but I only have 4. Oh, the fenced cans. Alright, so I have the control systems already for it, but my gunners need to level up to use these remaining slots. They can also be used for civilian turrets if I want. Got only enough miners for 1 more, so I probably want to buy another miner. Hire another miner. If I can find the actual turrets for that. That is, yeah, they have miners. Just need mining turrets. They only have these long-range mining turrets. It says long-range. It's not that long-range at all. 1.49. The range can be annoying when it's super short, so can't blame this too much. Yeah, these only have 0.75, which is ridiculously short range, so I guess they'll replace this stuff eventually, and don't quite have the money for another. Unless I hurry up, mine some Naonite, sell it, and come back and buy. In fact, I should just there's literally no purpose whatsoever to the iron one. It can't be used on Naonite, which is what I'm gonna look for. I say no, literally none, but there are still titanium rocks around and being dumb. Let's see. Still, I need to redo the mine turrets with somewhere for Naonite. Armor's not available in Naonite, unfortunately. Just to compare. And these are pretty much identical, except the smart hole does give full processing power. Okay. Just wanted to double check. Unfortunately, it has windows, kind of annoyingly. I don't particularly like them, but I don't think there's a smart blank hole. Oh, here there is. Perfect. Not too fond of the windows. Not my style. Debit just resizes. It's sticking out too far, and if I get in a collision, it'll quickly break. There we go. Slight gap under there, in which stick a teeny tiny pair of integrity failed generators. Doesn't seem to be one on the oh. There's not enough room under it. There we go. I should duplicate it because it'll probably eventually be. Sticking a turret up there of some sort as well. Ideally, another one of these Naonite turrets, for that matter. Now this has a size of 1, so it actually requires a 1 meter base, which this is just big enough for. You can see. Get another one, it can go on the inside there. It's just a little short in here, so hopefully larger asteroids hit this part first, but often this could get destroyed in a head-on collision, so it's not perfect. This is the irritating part about Naonite. When I get to Trinium or whatever, the blue sector, I should be able to have armor above it. Just turn the armor plates, of course. This whole ship's gonna get a redesign sooner or later. Guess I should leave this here. And here's a nonsense tutorial thing. I hope your recent experience with those pirates and put you off travel across the galaxy are plenty. Also, peaceful ways to how you get ahead. You should try trading. Most stations. Blah blah blah. Keep that because it'll give me stuff sometimes. That's in the tutorial, but I skipped it because I've done it before. Of course, it already updated with something. I need is to find a Naonite asteroid. There aren't a ton of asteroids here. There are some. There's a key, if I can remember. Tab, next target. I think that works in asteroids. Yep. I don't remember what the previous target, if there was a key for that, though. No, there isn't, stupidly. That's a titanium rock. Iron. Some of these may have hidden Naonite in the inside, but I don't have the ability to scan for that quite yet. Here we go. The nearest Naonite asteroid is 30 kilometers that way. Didn't I set the fog amount? There we go. Not fond of that. The fog is nonsense. Nowhere in the galaxy would actually have this thick of a nebula. This thick, what I'm seeing now, yes, but the fog is like you can't see a few kilometers, and that's bullshit. Nebulas are exceedingly thin. Did I? Probably turned off the inertia dampeners or something. Save energy before. No, they're still on. Things off. The ship is not really designed for mining. very well. Good miners have lots of inertia dampers or thrusters, so they can cancel out their velocity and get close. Otherwise, it becomes hard to inch up to an asteroid. Also, there's got to be a way to change the UI here. I would like to see my resources all the time. Darn it. What's worth? None to invest. What does backgrounds high or low even do? I don't know. There's a planet there. An Earth-like one. Doesn't seem to think my rather reasonably good graphics card can handle. My scheme is either really inefficiently done or doesn't recognize modern graphics cards. Probably a little of both. It's not that old a game, and it's still getting updates, so probably just expects people to have really insanely powerful graphics cards. Which unfortunately many people do, because there's too many people who like work science, like high paid engineering jobs or computer science jobs, and just have tons of money to throw at stuff, which sets expectations that everyone would have that. Whereas my background is science and struggling to try and become a doctor, which is a long, difficult, expensive process. And then when I was almost there and was going to finally pay off, I got long COVID, preventing me from achieving, well, anything really anymore, annoyingly. Heck, I don't even have a prayer of being able to date anymore. You try dating apps, no one wants to date someone who's disabled. They didn't even want to date me when I was healthy that much, just because I wasn't yet in a point in my career where I was making a lot of money. There's just endless shallowness in those apps. But it's mostly just the fault of our culture. The shallowness, men and women alike, just have a very shallow culture these days in America. The more unequal the society, the more shallowness and greed seem to be prized and rewarded. Perhaps that's the cause of inequality in society to begin with. I don't know. People I met who live in like European social democracies seem to be less shallow, and that may be because it's less of a struggle to survive in those countries where there's, strong labor unions and high wages. As well as better welfare programs and a lot of other things. The biggest difference is And those countries come from labor unions not being ruthlessly crushed by business owners like they are here in the U.S., where they can just get away with all sorts of illegal union busting practices and do. And even if that was reversed, it would take generations probably for things to get to be like Europe and America, because it's gotten so bad here. A lot of damage to undo. That doesn't happen fast. Indeed, the U.S. is pushing its system on Europe and eroding labor rights in Europe. It's not content just to stick to its own borders with its nonsense, so a lot of European countries are actually getting more like the U.S. and worse. A little bit. Because capital does not respect borders. The problem is capitalism, of course. It's all the power in society being held by those who control wealth. Capitalism, there's nothing good about it. People spread all sorts of nonsense, say it equals freedom, but no, history has shown capitalism is perfectly compatible with fascism. Every fascist country that ever existed was in fact capitalist, because it's a specifically reactionary movement that's anti-socialist. It's shown that it's compatible with absolute monarchies like Saudi Arabia. Those countries like that are in fact capitalist. There's nothing about it that's synonymous with freedom, and what there is inequality. In fact, not even fast economic growth relative to other systems. Like the Soviet Union actually had a better long-term economic growth rate than the U.S. The Cold War had gone on for, 120 more years. The Soviet Union would have eventually had a bigger economy than the USA, because its growth rate was both higher relative to its development level than any capitalist country on Earth, except for, I think, France and Japan. And so that would be the third highest relative to economic development rate. Definitely higher than other poor developing economies, like, say, India, that had similar. In fact, India was wealthier than, to give a different example, than China when it became communist. It had higher GDP per capita, and China surpassed it. And I think Brazil had similar GDP per capita to the Soviet Union when it was formed, and the Soviet Union ended up much higher. The issue with it was not GDP growth rates, it was civil liberties not being respected. What am I doing? What I need to do is head to the resource dock and sell stuff first. Sorry. My apologies. It's way over there. Good thing I can cross vast distances quickly. It's always small ones where I spend most of the time braking that's an issue. If you watch my Hearts Iron 4 Let's Play, it's why I'm doing a Communist Germany run, but it is the Spartacus League, a vision of communism that unfortunately never got any realization in our actual history, but one that respects civil liberties and democratic institutions in a way the Soviet Union never did. Fortunately, it's getting crushed by the Soviet Union in a war. So, in that game. See, Naonite sells for somewhat more. Trinium would be more still. Each resource is worth about 50% more than the previous tier. It's still not enough to buy even one mining turret. It's a considerable number of credits, but asteroids are spread very thin in this sector. Of course, the Soviet Union did not collapse because of its lack of regard for civil liberties. Very few systems ever do, actually, no matter how oppressive they may be. By lack of regard for civil liberties, I mean like the KGB spying on people. Not some nonsense about communism equals no economic freedom, because actually workers had a lot of say in how their workplaces were run. They helped elect the managers of the state corporations. Not every company was, in fact, nationalized or socialized. Some were actually, for quite a bit of Soviet history, still in private hands. Some of the smaller companies, but smaller operations. But by the end, a very large percentage was nationalized. And by the 50s, it was most of the economy, I think, if I remember correctly. Not, for instance, in the 20s, 30s, or 40s. In fact, the level of hostility the U.S. had to the Soviet Union can almost directly correlate with the level of nationalization that occurred. There was actually a lot of U.S. investment in the Soviet Union earlier in its history, like the 20s and 30s, when there was still quite a bit of private enterprise in the country. Interestingly, but anyways, at places that were organized as workers' cooperatives, which are directly run by workers, which weren't a lot of the Soviet economy until Gorbachev worked to expand them, but it did it in a ham-fisted way that led to organized crime actually taking over a lot of those worker cooperatives. The ones that weren't were very much directly in control by workers, and the state-run corporations, the workers actually helped in workplace elections elect the managers. They had a lot more say than in a capitalist enterprise over their daily work lives. And there were local elections of political representatives. The problem was those representatives held no real power. They elected other individuals who also held no real power, who in turn elected individuals who held real power. Like 3 levels removed, and this system didn't work great for actually seeing people's voices represented in government, especially because where is there another asteroid with resources? Come on. There we go. No opposition parties are allowed, so it's just the Communist Party, which doesn't mean there was no competition in elections. That's a lie that's often told by misrepresenting how elections worked. If you think about how elections work in, say, the U.S., if there's only one party, the actual competition would all take place in the primaries, not in the election, where if there's only one party, there would be one person on the ballot, most likely. And that's exactly what it was in the Soviet Union. Except instead of primaries, they had mass meetings, is what they called them, which were kind of town hall meeting style events. at these kind of town hall events, people would choose from sometimes over a dozen candidates who they wanted to represent them. These are not perfect. People were mostly chosen by aye, nay, or show of hands. So it was not a secret ballot. Everyone in the community knew who you were voting for. And that came with proms, especially if, say, there was a member of the secret police, KGB, whatever, in that community. People might feel intimidated to go against someone that they supported. But not in the sense of the government actually directly selecting someone or like some centralized authority, but more personal. Your neighbor Joe really likes this person and he happens to work for the police, and so you can't go against him publicly. Which, even happens in America with town hall meetings. There are people who are connected to the local police and such that people don't always dare go against, because then they might get a traffic ticket they don't deserve or something, or worse. So that happens anywhere where elections aren't completely secret. That's because there are, in some communities, especially in the Northeast, there are town halls that decide some policies rather than being decided at the ballot box, and things can be sometimes decided by show of hands or by aye, nay. Some of these even, but it's not a secret, and that carries problems. That's why it's actually very uncommon. You always see a few small towns where that really most decisions are done at the ballot these days, but ballot box in larger towns. But there's that old history, and it used to be much more of how especially New England towns were run. It's considered quaint and outdated these days because there are obvious problems with it. Anyhow, there was something over there. Be in the 40 kilometer range. Oof, I have to go through a whole bunch of stuff again. I can hold it. This is why I need an asteroid scanner. Of course, these ranges are beyond pretty much any asteroid scanner you realistically get in the game, except maybe in the core. I can detect asteroids 40 kilometers away. Resources, I don't think, or no, some have system-wide ranges, actually. I don't think any of the ones that have a numbered range have this, but there are ones that are everything in the system. Just at some point it stops jumping from 7 kilometers, 15, whatever, and it goes all the way to just system-wide. Those are very advanced scanners. This is tedious, and this is why eventually you'll hire AI captains to go run mining ships for you, so you can focus more interest in things like combat, trade. It's not going to be nearly enough resources. It's worth knowing these are purifying scanners, which are very inefficient. Oh, there's another one nearby. There we go. There's non-purifying scanners you can get that you have to take the resources to the resource stock to purify them, the ore, and it sits in your cargo bay until then. So you need cargo bays on mining ships. That gets you much higher yields per asteroid. Though it does require regular trips to a resource dock to operate. Still, it's more efficient both in time and per asteroid. So that's definitely a venture where you end up. Still don't have nearly enough to hope to buy another mining turret. Anyways, it's probably synonymous with socialism that you have to not have very well-designed democratic institutions or respect for multi-party opposition politics or least of all lack of civil liberties. It's more specifically how the Soviet Union operated. And the Soviet Union is not all forms of communism. Unfortunately, historically, there were only ever two locuses of socialist revolution, the Soviet Union and Communist China. All the other countries were basically just copy-pasted these major countries because they were small, weaker countries and they needed to align themselves with these major powers to hope to not get conquered by the West, because the US was constantly bullying small socialist countries and looking to invade them and such. Some countries did try to go their own way, and they were almost immediately couped or otherwise attacked by the West and destroyed. So in order to survive, these countries had to align themselves with a major power. It was the only way. That meant copying the political system of either the Soviet Union or China, mostly the Soviets. So people get these skewed, especially people are trying to be dishonest and just want to say socialism is bad. Get the skewed idea of what is possible under it. Or some people go around lying, saying it's the only thing that's possible, even if they know that's not true. In reality, that's just how things were done in the Soviet Union, and that was actually an improvement over how bad things were in Tsarist Russia before then. Which is not to say that things were good in all ways in the Soviet Union, but the Tsarist Russia was really, really bad. People have no idea how much there was like secret police who made people disappear in the night and tortured, and it was an absolutely brutal authoritarian regime. There have been some people go around whitewashing the history of now because they want to make the Soviet Union look bad. And so to do that, they may try and say that the system it replaced wasn't really so bad, but that's a lie. It was horrible. Of course, most people who do that are openly or secretly neo-Nazis. Find a lot of them on Reddit and very few other places. Maybe 4chan or something, which is even more infested by Nazis than Reddit. It's not to say everyone on Reddit is, just that there are a number of them running around there, and them and far-right extremist libertarians. Ones who want to like abolish all government and even get rid of driver's licenses and ridiculous stuff like that. Those kind of people are, there's a lot of on Reddit too. And they bully anyone who's not like them. It's ironic because it actually started off as a community for anarchists and people anarchist leaning. But most anarchists have been willing to tolerate the far right while actively suppressing anyone on the left who isn't like them. So It's not actually surprising that it ended up like that. Not that it's led by anarchists anymore. It's absolutely not. It's big capitalist corporation. Runs Reddit. They only care about the bottom line at the end of the day. Hey, I guess it's not quite as bad as Twitter in the censorship. The issue is more that like these far right people bully everyone else, but then if you complain about it or try and stand up against it in any way, they'll go after you. I had the experience of a moderator would always swear at me, accuse me of doing something I didn't. He was literally mixed me up with another user who I called out for behaving badly. Because he mixed up the usernames, he was swearing at me. And I messaged the other moderators of that subreddit and said, this guy's behaving inappropriately. Can you take a look at his messages? And Reddit actually banned me after that for, I kid you not, harassing a moderator. This is a matter of a sub. Not for messaging the guy who was swearing at me, ignoring him, and messaging the other moderators at sub, not knowing which one this guy was, because the way it works is you don't know what moderators contact you and say, one of your moderators is behaving extremely rudely. Could you please take a look at his messages? That is extremely appropriate behavior, and nothing wrong with it. However, Reddit will protect people doing stuff. In this case, I'm pretty sure it wasn't a far-right individual, but a likely member of Hasbro, which is Israeli intelligence operations, influence social media. Probably some college student they were paying to do it because they do that. In fact, people have leaked their recruitment ads they put up on college campuses. Would you like to earn money and defend Israel? Go on social media and we'll pay you. They've literally put up ads like this. And so some of these people were taking over a sub and censoring anyone who said anything critical of Israel. And one of the people, and flooding the sub with trolls. And what happened is there was a guy who was trolling someone else, being extremely rude to them. I called him and I said, your behavior is inappropriate, you're being very rude. And then the moderator messaged me, temporarily banned me from this, missed me, started swearing at me. And I'm like, I didn't say any of that stuff. He started saying, I'm like, that's literally the guy I called out for misbehaving. This guy, maybe he was just at wit's end because he was dealing with all these trolls who were flooding the subs, but I didn't say any of this, and yeah. But the corporate people at Reddit will silence anyone who's left-leaning who they have any excuse to. There's no doubt that they silence me not because I politely messaged some mods and said one of your moderators is misbehaving. Subreddit mods, that is, other users of sub. We're not talking employees of the company. But because I happen to be left-leaning and these velocity bypass systems are fun. They let you go to an unlimited max speed, but they reduce the energy from your generators. The low tier ones have massive effect. The high tier ones are only a moderate effect in your energy generation. But I'm not going to be able to buy up my turret before the thing expires, so I might as well jump to another system with more asteroids. This one only has 157. Anyhow, I'm quite a bit salty over that. I don't hide that fact. That behavior and all the neo-Nazis, and I literally got death threats from neo-Nazis was on there a few times, and I'm like, this is enough. It's a cesspool. Of some of the worst people. It's like random corn farms and stuff here in this asteroid belt. Doesn't seem a very sensible place to locate all this industry. I mean, I would think the asteroids, the way this game works, would hide pirates and stuff, but whatever. I need some better turrets soon. Considered weak in this area still, and I would like to get to the trinium areas before long. These turrets are wicked outdated for the area I'm in. Like, they wouldn't do jack if something decided to attack me. My best option would be to run. Oof. Minor collisions like that tend to happen in asteroid belts, especially when you pitiful thruster levels. Again, this is a much bigger asteroid than the last ones. Sector's ones. Might actually get some decent yields here. Enough to get some real upgrades to my ships, buy some turrets. This is closest core sector, so the tech level of turrets for sale should be much better. Also, they tend to just be better when you enter like a Naonite sector. They're better in the titanium reaches. Trinium sectors are better still. Higher tier sectors tend to have better stuff even regardless of tech level. Add them both together, and yeah, even though the material of a turret makes no direct effect on stats, just the way the game is balanced in terms of what's for sale. At the stations in particular area. At what point does the tech level jump up and by how much and that kind of thing. This is a rich asteroid belt. Stain it all over it. This is the closest one. It's worth noting if you rewind, you could coat a ship in rock or ore. It's actually very durable against everything except mining lasers, which cut through it very easily, as you can see here. But if I were to say shoot this with my guns, in fact I'll do it briefly so you can see, it does almost nothing. So it's much more cost effective than armor, except that it has a lot of mass, so really increased hyperspace jump energy of a ship. It's more of a thing you might put on a slow-moving bruiser that you just have patrol system with a bunch of stations of yours. It's not actually a ship that's not actually meant to jump, or possibly doesn't even have the energy to jump to other systems. Or something that escorts a trade ship that only uses the gate network, so it doesn't need to be able to hyperspace jump. Because there are gate networks that can connect systems. Ships don't need to be able to jump to use that. So an escort ship for a merchant ship that was taking a trade route purely that way. Well, of course, that'd be a merchant ship you fly yourself. Come think of it, because you can't automate. Trade is entirely abstracted since they reworked the missions a while back. I don't think you can actually have merchant ships that can't hyperspace jump anymore, unless you're personally flying one, in which case you'd be flying probably a truly enormous freighter to make it worth your time. Some really high volume, high value route. Most likely way for that would be if you set up a ton of manufacturers for high value goods of your own, and then ran a route to some more distant systems where there was some demand for some of it. Maybe your self-built trade post that accepted those goods. I'm trying to think of exactly when you might. Yeah, it's not that hard to happen that much anymore. People have trade ships that don't. As I said, it's all abstracted. When the tutorial for this game came out, for the main game, it was limited to a single system. So of course there was no need to worry about hyperspace jump energy. Didn't show off probably the systems haven't been developed yet for multi-system. The tutorial. I mean, did I say tutorial? Sorry, demo. Demo first came out. It's a tiny iron asteroid, not really worth my time. Of course, if you're in just one system, there's no need to worry about hyperspace jump energy, I was saying, so the optimal way to play that became to build bruisers that were just coated in stone. Of course, the asteroids that you could mine would quickly run out, and the only source of money would be I think pirates and Zosin that periodically spawn there that you destroy. There's also no way to hire additional ships, so you just had your one ship. You could spend some time just messing around with farming the Zosin. It wasn't that interesting, but it did show off the building mechanics of the game. You know, how you could build ships. What's like whatever. That way back when that came out, this game is very innovative, I would say. The game is a little older now. Demo must have been, what, gosh, 9 years ago? 7 years ago? It was before the whole splurge of voxel games. I mean, now you have like a number of them. For instance, another one I've played is 7 Days to Die. That's a voxel game. You know, they were all... The idea with voxels that it was a more realistic looking version of the same basic principles as Minecraft, except instead of blocks, everything would be based on ultimately triangular pieces. Although, like in this game, you can still use blocks in building a ship, but the game was actually built out of triangular pieces that allowed, you know, diagonals, which you can't have in Minecraft, really. Everything is right angles there. Like if you want to slope the roof, the closest you can come is stairs, which are really just a series of right angles very close to each other. There are no true slopes. It's nonetheless a great game, but it does suffer some limitations for being block-based. So voxels were an attempt to improve upon that idea, while still allowing the immense freedom of construction and destruction that Minecraft allowed, which for the longest time before that game's been talking about, oh, we have destructible environments, and it was like a few walls that could be destroyed in a first-person shooter, or it wasn't really the freedom people wanted, being able to see almost anything be potentially destroyed, or be able to build things, which no game really included much freeform building. It was worth a darn, except for like 2D city builders and stuff. Now things are very limited in your freedom of design. I don't know, I've been gaming for, gosh, I mean, technically 28 years since I was a little kid. Seen so much change in all those years. But things have really slowed down in recent ones. There's not nearly that much different games that came out 7 or 9 years ago and games that come out today. And AAA studios have just become incredibly money-grabbing. Like DLC. They're not very creative anymore, and everything is just about the bottom line. Because capitalism ruins everything, you know? All that creativity didn't have to be lost. It was lost because of the pursuit of profit. Those days are never coming back. Of just a lot of creative individuals transforming the industry at a rapid pace. Because that's not what's most profitable. Profit rules everything in the end of capitalism. Even if something allowing for greater creativity allows the sector to grow faster, or change, or attract an audience, it doesn't matter. Eventually it'll get ruined. Short-term thinking. The only reason it survived as long as it has is because of the computer revolution. I mean, the US system was already showing serious signs of becoming decrepit and on its way to collapse and failure by the dawn of the internet, if the internet had come along, which was, in the US, a project originally developed by the government for military and research university purposes. Think about it, we took the benefits of capitalism, but the thing that saved it from collapse, probably, or stagnation, was very much a government project. It It's not even that it had to be military. The French actually developed a version before the internet, Minitel. Forget. I have an article on it saved somewhere. And it worked great until they tried to privatize it. And when they tried to put it from government to private hands, it collapsed because technology basis was less mature back then, and while it could do just great and develop rather rapidly in government hands, it wasn't yet to the point where it could be profitable at all with the short-term thinking of corporations, which short-term thinking ruined it very quickly. Government projects, when the government is democratically elected and controlled by the people, is socialism. People may say nonsense state capitalism, but state capitalism in a democratic system isn't really capitalism anymore. Capitalism is defined by who controls the capital. That being capitalism, a small group of very rich people. State capitalism actually refers to when a group of elites basically take charge of the government and control the government and control nationalized industries through the government. That is, it's not ordinary people holding the political power. It's a handful of ultra-wealthy individuals who profit off those nationalized companies. The use of that term has become so bastardized just so people can do nonsense like call China state capitalism, even though it shows none of the features of it. That's so they can deny the success of socialism there, which is making the US look pathetic these days. And that's despite the economic warfare to try and destroy it now, with all the CHIPS Act and such being about undermining China. Maybe not completely collapsing it, but weakening it enough so that hopefully India will outgrow it. As soon as they say, oh look, India, which is very capitalist, is doing better. Socialism is really not as good as capitalism. They don't care if 1 billion people suffer from the weakening a system. They don't care if it's not fair and it's not really the best system winning. People who are doing that only care about control and power. And in fact hurt US citizens. This economic warfare that's going on already is. It's contributing to inflation, the ongoing trade war with China. Alright. Yeah, it's another problem with the Soviet Union. The Soviets weren't particularly enamored of free trade. I mean, they understood that trade between countries can lead to imperialism, but it doesn't itself have to. It was their particular understanding of Marx's writings that led to a relatively economically isolationist perspective. Plus their struggles against Nazi Germany, which was a country that embraced economic isolationism and yet became very dangerous, which made the Soviets, who lost 4 million civilians murdered by the Nazis, and 8 million soldiers died in combat, made them think that such a system was maybe a better approach. Contributed to the fallout between the US and Soviet Union, which actually had relatively warm terms and for a period before World War II, though there had been a great deal of hostility under Wilson in the first Red Scare, but Wilson was literally accused of being secretly a member of the Ku Klux Klan. He was very right-wing, very anti-communist too, and very racist and a lot of bad things. But then once Wilson was out of power, there was a thaw in relations. And there were actually a lot of American capitalists invested in the Soviet Union, helped build factories there, and there's a lot of trade between the countries going into the time of the Great Depression and such. Then World War II happened. The Soviets felt that the West hadn't done enough to support them, and they were irritated by the British intentionally submarining attempts to form a defensive pact with the French and Poles even. The Soviets really wanted it with France, but the French wanted to include Poland, and Soviets were willing to go along with that as long as the Poles allowed them to march troops through Polish territory to reach the German borders, because otherwise, how could they ever beat Germany? But yeah, the British intentionally submarined the whole thing, playing up tensions between Poland and Soviet Union, working to get the government in France that was approving of this deal. In fact, there was such a mutual defense pact. It was approved in France. But then the government that had approved it lost elections, and the very next government basically tore up the treaty. They didn't actively reject it, but they basically sidelined it, made it useless. And that was partly due to British interference in French politics. And British pressure on the next new incoming government. And that, of course, without an alliance between France and the Soviet Union against Germany, the faction within Soviet politics that took a more free trade, pro-internationalist cooperation, even with capitalist countries, perspective, was sidelined, and the more isolationist militaristic faction, represented most infamously by Molotov, who signed the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, came to power. In fact, Maxim Leonov, the guy who tried to do the Non-Aggression Pact and Mutual Defense Agreement with France, who was, by the way, Jewish, and was very concerned about the oppression of Jews in Nazi Germany. Leonov was sidelined and even ended up in the gulags in the Great Purge because he was falsely accused of working with foreign powers who were trying to undermine the Soviet Union, among them Nazi Germany, which is very ironic because he hated Nazi Germany. But Nazi Germany did actually have spies in the Soviet Union. That's a historical fact that people try and minimize, even though there's documents that conclusively prove it. And there were saboteurs, some aligned with Nazis, some aligned with the Trotskyites, and anarchist groups. There was a lot of political devices in the Soviet Union, and having a single party system did not help, because groups that were sidelined turned to violence and sabotage instead of opposition campaigns. But anyways, Leonov was eventually sent to the gulags. I don't believe he died there, but he did. His political career was over. Gulags, by the way, is just the Soviet word for prison. It included both political prisoners and your murderers, thieves, rapists, those kinds of people as well. Which is how you get inflated numbers of people in gulags, and people try and pretend they were all political prisoners. Statistically, it was about half of them were ordinary criminals. So the numbers on gulag prisoners are almost always approximately twice. People say that this many people imply they were all political prisoners, but about half of those people were ordinary criminals. Still a lot of political prisoners. Far too many. And even though most didn't die there, that's a lie that's often told as well. I forget the average sentence there. It's actually shorter than the average time spent in prison for a person in America these days who goes to prison. But or at least was in the past. I think average prison sentences have started to get shorter now. They might not be that bad anymore. Prison sentences weren't that long. I think they were about 7 years on average, but they were brutal. It was very common for Gulag prisoners to lose fingers, toes to frostbite, because they worked long hours in extreme cold, many of the gulags being in Siberia, doing hard manual labor. And they weren't fed amazingly well for the hard labor they were doing. They got the same food rations as people doing much more sedentary jobs. They weren't intentionally starved, usually, though during World War II, they were given the lowest priority for the rations actually being met, which means even though they were supposed to get these rations that were basically the same as anyone else, when they should have gotten extra rations because they were doing, this hard labor that required more calories. They often didn't get what they were supposed to because there wasn't enough food to go around during World War II, and so a huge number of prisoners died, which is where all the statistics on the gulags are so lethal come from. When you exclude the World War II years, they actually had a higher survival rate than U.S. prisons. Again, not great places. Not that many people died, but it was a lot more common to lose limbs and fingers and toes to frostbite. A lot of people came back maimed. So, due to the harsh environment, sometimes there was beatings and stuff too, but mostly it was just the cold doing its work on people who weren't given enough warm clothing and were left outside too many hours, like breaking rocks and mining. And it wasn't usually labor for labor's sake. It was actually making stuff or mining stuff, but not always equipped as well as they should have been. Given outdated tools, not enough warm clothing, you get the idea. So even 7 years of that could seriously mess a person up, and did. Leonov was never the same after his prison term, if I remember, and that was not uncommon. And he didn't deserve it. There's no evidence that he actually did anything he was accused of. But if I remember correctly, Molotov himself helped frame Leonov because they were political rivals. I could be getting some facts wrong here. I'm going half-remembered things because long COVID, everything is half-remembered. I do not have great memory anymore. Lots of memory issues. But some of the general concepts are definitely true. Like the prison sentences being much shorter. I tend to remember concepts because those are important things. The specific details, I try and slide around them. But now the specific details slip through more too often with the long COVID, and they matter. But the overall concepts matter more. If you know the right overall concepts, you can figure out if a detail fits in with them or not. My background in biology, you can't always remember every single protein or if you remember the concepts that guide things. I don't know. I was a very, very good student by the end. It took a while. There's reasons I was a late bloomer, but I was getting straight 4.0s in my special master's program. I would have become a physician if not for long COVID. Special master's program is a master's program at a medical school, usually. Learning some of the same things the medical students learn in many of the programs, though not always. Sometimes it's a very different curriculum. My program was a lot of the same things taught by the same professors who taught the medical students. So it was very, very good indication. If you can handle this, They took about 2/3 of the first year of an MD and stretched it out over an entire year. But if you can handle this material at 2/3 pace and do well enough in it, you can probably handle MD. And you've seen some of it before, so you'll do better just for having seen it before. Of course, it wasn't enough just to pass. You need good grades, but a perfect GPA like I was getting, that was obviously the best you could get, so no one could say I couldn't handle. In fact, that was an indication that I would have done very, very well in an MD academically. It's not everything. Some people are great academically and still make terrible doctors, but it's a big piece of the puzzle for sure. Now I can't remember even basic statistics too often. Ooh, loot from a pirate ship that jumped in and was immediately destroyed by the system patrols. Yeah, the AI runs system patrols of their own. Just as you might run some in a system of yours. If it's not one that's controlled by the AI, you'll need something to deal with pirates. You can equip stations with guns and they can defend themselves, and even hangars to project power further out with fighters, but AI freighters will come into a system and such to trade. And if pirates have free reign outside the gun range of your stations, they'll destroy the freighters, and if enough get destroyed, the system will be marked unsafe and you'll get far fewer freighters to visit. The freighter is important because if you build a manufacturing station, the stuff you make doesn't just turn into money instantly. A freighter has to come and buy it. So without freighters, the factories will have to stop working because there's no way to offload their product, and they'll fill up their storage eventually. You can always give factories more storage, have quite a large amount of stuff stored and stockpile. In fact, it's generally a good idea to do so, because if I remember correctly, having more stuff stored gets bigger freighters that visit on average. And although mostly that correlates with the distance from the core, how big the freighters are, the bigger the close you are. And I do know for sure that buying stuff, because most factories have inputs and outputs, the more units of something you already have in storage, the lower price the freighters will sell stuff at. You drive a harder bargain, so having a lot of storage dedicated to inputs will get you cheaper materials. And the more potential storage space you have for outputs that's empty, the higher a price you have. So you ideally want a lot of storage, both so that you have a lot of input storage that's full, so you get cheap inputs, and a lot of output storage that's empty, and so that even when it's filling up between freighters, it never gets that full percentage-wise. This is an investment of limited cost effectiveness, of course, but it is something you can do to maximize the profits of stations or cut a profit somewhere where you might not be able to cut a profit otherwise. To better weather a period where maybe a system gets declared unsafe and there aren't freighters coming to buy stuff for a while. Because otherwise your output storage could fill up completely, making the station go idle but still have to pay crew. Or fill up partially enough that you no longer get as good a price for your outputs that you sell. Like if you have 5 times the storage, then even if your storage would have only just barely filled up and you wouldn't have stopped work, you only be 20% full instead of 100%, and you won't see as big a depression in the prices that you can sell. But wreckages will build up in a sector over time as pirates come in and get destroyed. It can actually really lag the system eventually, and it does clutter up, of course, selecting objects in the system. Can build salvage ships, and they can salvage a ship for resources, but they often leave lots of tiny little parts like antennas behind that they don't clean up. We can actually make it worse in terms of the number of parts that are free floating, although not the total mass of stuff. Wreckage can be a navigation hazard too. It's one thing that this game never worked out how to deal with. Some multiplayer servers, I think, will regularly just cleanse, delete all the wreckage in frequently traveled systems. There's apparently tools for that, but the game doesn't do anything like this by default. Cool. Okay, now I have a bit of money, almost enough to buy probably enough to buy some pretty decent upgrades for the ship. And this video has also been going on an hour and a half. So I know this is a slow start. It's just some mining. And listen to me talk politics, stuff that's probably drives some of you nuts or makes you hate me, but keeps my mind occupied while I do this relatively boring stuff. I should try going to Twitch sometime. Viewer engagement, finding more interesting things to talk about that people suggest. Or at least have two-way conversations about some of this. Twitch and record the streams so they would still be here on YouTube as well. Because I can do that. I have the capability. The know-how. It's a little harder on my computer. I can't really do that while I have... For instance, sometimes I'll have an upload that I start with something and I'll pause while the game's running, but it'll still be there eating at RAM, and I can't really do that and stream to Twitch and record a new video and have a game running all at the same time. It's just a bit too much for my computer's RAM. So it's not without cost, but if I had a decent number of people on Twitch watching me, I tried streaming before and I was getting literally no viewers, or 1 or 2 bots who weren't real people, rather. No real viewers. So I was brand new to returning to streaming, but maybe now I get a few people. It'd be worth it. If I'd spent enough time there, I would have eventually gotten people wandering by anyhow. There is a way to even set the ship to kind of autopilot mine for you while in a system. Basically idling. Let's see. Oh no, you need a captain for anything more than mining a specific asteroid. If you had a service guy, you could see the whole system, you could queue up a bunch. If you have capped on the ship, you might be controlling it directly, but you could still have that order running. Captains aren't too pricey. I could definitely hire one. Probably even build a small ship. independent of this one to go mine and stuff, but it'd be very weak and almost certainly get attacked by pirates quickly. Unless I had a mining system I loaded, and it was one like this one where there were patrols to keep it safe. Need a bit more money and resources to equip a ship properly so the captain can operate independently of me. Not far from that point. It's always less than you think it is, but it's not nothing. For instance, I should save this design. It's been a little bit. Okay, it would be 105,000 credits. 4,500 iron. 14,000 titanium and 18 naonite for the current design. Yeah, if I had sulfur resources, I could build a copy of the ship right now, although I would need better turrets for it not to be considered weak, and it's probably just a bigger ship overall. So you just about duplicate this ship, but this ship is too weak to operate independently. And I would need, so I do need a bit more in the way of resources and money, because money gets subsystems, pays the crew, hires captains, etc. A lot of construction requires credits. That's why it's like 105,000 for this ship. That's just the credit cost of parts, I believe. Not even kind of subsystems or, well, or the turrets. Anyways, it's been a while since I did a video at this game, so I'm getting a start on this series, even though this is a day where I'm not at my best. Even more tired than usual because I did a bunch of Wilder Myth Let's Play videos earlier today. That tired me out. Do check those out if that game interests you at all. But yeah, I think I did like 3. 3 is my absolute limit, usually videos for a day with my long COVID. I'm lucky to even be able to do this, dragging ass as I am. But that's it for now. I gotta call it. So, there's the resource dock depot. Guess that's the goodest places I know to log out near. Till next time, this is Northstar, signing off. I wish you all the best. Take care of each other. Be kind to yourselves. And may you always find a guiding star to lead you home. Adieu. Until next time.